Is going to be Percy Fong up against Chris Botello. That is how they got there, dismantling their opponents along the way. Is it prowess? Nowhere to be seen, and it's a tale as old as time. Mono Red versus Azoruis Control.
That's right, as classic as it gets. You know, could be 2025, 2015, 2005. You can find just the archetypal aggressive versus controlling matchup. Percy Fang trying to go fast, get in underneath Chris Botello before he's able to set up. Chris trying to prolong the game, keep his life total high, leverage some of those more impactful cards like Meringue River Regent.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's gonna be dicey, and it could go either way.
To give you an idea of what Chris Botello is rocking here, plenty of ways to gain life, plenty of ways to gum up the board with creatures, and also obviously ways to just get stuff off the board.
Yeah, so the key here is just a healthy mix, lots of 1 and 2 ofs, plus the card selection to be able to find it. One of the only 4 of spells in the deck is Stock Up, which no secret at this point how powerful of a card advantage and card selection spell that is. Leaning really heavily on Beza, the Bounding Spring, which could arguably be the most important card in this particular matchup. And yeah, he's just trying to live long enough to leverage that and you know, use it as a bridge to get into his 6 mana and 7 mana plays. Live
long and prosper, right? Something along those lines. Let's take a look at the opponent's list here in the hands of Percy Fang. We have I would not say it's a stock mono red list, as 4 Hired Claw in the main deck. Excuse me, not Hired Claw. 3 Magebane Lizards, as those little guys have been putting in a lot of work, making the non-creature spells cost or controllers have a real big think about how many spells they're going to cost while that little guy's on the board.
For sure. I'm really excited to see how the Magebane Lizard plays out in this particular matchup, because what it gives up in terms of its just raw damage output, it makes up for in the fact that it is going to be a persistent source of damage, even if he has to pump the brakes and stop attacking in the face of, you know, something like a Beza, a blocker on the other side of the battlefield. Magebane Lizard is going to keep chipping away against a deck that's basically entirely non-creature spells.
Who needs to win by attacking when you got a lizard that's just blasting? Let's get down to the feature match area and send somebody home with $20,000 and a pretty cool trophy to boot. Here we go. Chris Botello on top of your screen. Azoruis Control in red sleeves. That's funny. Up against Percy Fang on mono red aggro. Surveilling a Meringue River region into the bin as the first game action of the finals. But first blood, of course, goes to Percy Fang. Mono red aggros, I would say favorite 1-drop. Maybe Heartfire Heroes taking that spot, but Monastery Swiftspear still doing a great job. And an excellent first play here from Chris Botello. You like hasty things? Well, sorry.
Yeah, Authority of the Consuls is exactly what he wants. It's the single best play he can make for 1 mana. He would have loved to play it turn 1 on the play.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is one of the differences between a 20 mountain mana base and you know, a more complex multicolor mana base, including value lands, surveil lands. Sometimes you do miss your play on curve while you're setting up.
But I mean, if you see your, I think that's the 1 of in the he's got 2 in the main deck. If you see that in your opening hand, though, you're going to be real happy with it, irrespective, as Ride's End will take care of the Emberheart Challenger. So no extra damage or cards coming for Percy Fang off of that card. Well, already the mountain to climb has gotten quite steep for mono red.
Standard 10K players, welcome to round 9. You have 50 minutes.
A replacement Emberheart Challenger joins the Monastery Swiftspear. And Authority of the Consuls gaining a bunch of life for Chris.
Yeah, It just crazy. Like, that card has already represented an 8-point life swing in terms of the 3 that it's gained him plus the 5 haste damage that it's saved him from. So, I mean, that's night and day. Like, can you imagine how much differently we'd be discussing the game if Chris was at 12, you know, and not having this really impactful defensive measure on the battlefield? Like, he has the luxury to cast Stalk Up here because of Authority of the Consuls. If he didn't have that, he'd be at 12 and, like, very possibly just dying, you know? So, okay, I'll stock up and play my 4th land tapped. Now you have a single Monstrous Rage and the game is over. But that's not the case because of the Authority of the Consuls. So if Chris can find, say, Day of Judgment or Temporary Lockdown, maybe even Beza will be good enough, depending on what Percy's turn is like.
Beza would be great, because you get the creatures along with the big ol' elk. Authority of Consuls should just read annoy target red player, right?
It is brutal. This is a reprint in Foundations, but I remember the first time it showed up in Kaladesh that it was also, you know, similar. Mono red was really effective there, and Authority of the Consuls was one of the cards you could turn to try to shore up your matchup.
So Percy is going to have to navigate this a lot more differently than he would have otherwise if Authority wasn't a factor.
He does have that appealing moment of shields down, where he can kind of start his turn, know that all of his...
Oh,
okay.
Convenient.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage.
So what's it? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 damage through? Yeah, that's half his life total.
Yep, I count 10 as well.
That's a silly card.
Oh, 11 actually
11?
with the Rock Face Village.
Oh, yeah. Missed that one. Icky. All right, well. Still, again, Chris is sitting quite happily there. Not in range of a kick burst lightning or anything.
Plus 5, 16 damage.
Yeah, he would have been dead without Authority. Good grief.
So, just like this draw from Percy, he would have output like 30-something damage by turn 4 if he had been uncontested. Like, it's crazy. He has his opponent down to 4 life.
Yeah.
And Chris has, we talked about the Authority of the Consuls gaining him, you know, upwards of 10. He had Ride's End.
Good grief.
So the game is not over, but just like real respect to the mono red deck's ability to fight through even some very serious stumbling blocks.
Absolutely. Board wipe? Oh, Beza. Okay. So life, creatures. We get to see the fish again. Not going to complain about that. But it's hard to block against Monstrous Rage, so things are still looking all right here for Percy if he's got one hell of a follow-up to that incredible turn.
I predict Percy, you know, if the game is going to remain competitive, he's going to be attacking with all of his creatures here, and then what he has in his hand to support them will be the real determining factor. If he can have some Monstrous Rages going uncontested, he's going to be in great shape.
We are going to combat. It's a land, but still.
The Swift Spear's coming in
Double
too. That's pretty nice because, like, the 3/3 trample double strike.
Oh,
whoa!
That's got to be enough, right? Oh, we need one more thing to kill these fishies, but it looks like we are able to block the Swift Spears. Monstrous Rage number 2. Oh boy, Chris is in a lot of trouble.
It's 8 damage from the Emberheart Challenger.
Chris is real chill about about going to, what, 1?
This is a player announcement for Jesse Parnell. If you were at the hall, please come to the main stage for a lost item. Jesse Parnell, if
Good grief. Okay. So, there is a creature. Well, if there's a board wipe, there's no creatures. Does Chris have a way to answer this board and buy himself a little bit of time? Oh, he's going to go digging for it.
Yeah, so he probably needs exactly temporary lockdown. Bad news is that removes the authority of the consoles, so opens the door for Percy to...
oh, yeah, then basically anything in his deck is Rockface Village.
Right, yeah, any haste creature, any burst lightning.
Ugh.
Wow.
Holy smokes. Percy Fang picking up game 1 here. On the play, which he needed. No, was he on the play or the draw?
He was on
He
the
was
draw.
on the draw.
Yeah, so...
That's even bigger.
So, you know, Chris Patello, he's got to be shaking his head like, wow, I was on the play with authority of the consoles, and maybe not a perfect draw, but a pretty functional draw. I had authority, I had a follow-up removal spell, I had Beza, and I still lost that one. So what do I want to go better next time? He does have a pretty good sideboard, you know, additional... Well, that's actually the 4th copy of Beza. Additional removal spells, change the equation is an upgrade to his existing permission spells, and of course, you know, what to answer the question of what could be different in the future games, could just be that Percy's draw is a little bit weaker. You know, mentioned when Percy faced Izzet in the semifinals that the gap between the poor draws and the really strong draws in mono red can feel quite dramatic, and certainly I would describe what Percy had in game 1 as one of the strong draws.
Yeah, he certainly had the nuts there because he just never ran out of things to do. And, you know, when your opponent's gaining life and finding so many cards, I mean, Chris looked at a good chunk of the top of his deck there, but still couldn't find a way to answer Percy's board, so... Game 1, done and dusted. Can you do that one more time, Percy? Sun, spine, links. Sun, spine, links.
Yeah, Chris does have basic lands, but he has 20 non-basics as well, plus
Owie.
the can't gain life clause, quite meaningful against Azoruis.
Because, yeah, plenty of things in Chris's list gain him life. We have Beza, the Bounding Spring. We've got authority of the consoles, an extra copy of each in the sideboard too. Oh no, both authorities are in the main deck. Sheesh.
All right, so I'm thinking Beza, 2 change the equation, 1 Elspeth's Might. No More Lies, probably a fine option, especially when you're going first. Probably looking at those 5 and then just trimming some of your clunky stuff. 2 copies of Jace the Perfected Mind. Those are coming right out.
Yeah.
Overlord of the Mistmoors is an interesting one because I think it's definitely worse than Beza for the same mana cost.
Yeah.
But, you know, still a totally passable card that can get you on the board and help you close the game when you're ready.
Do you think the Regent's staying?
I don't think he can cut all of the Regents. If you wanted to tell me, okay, I'm going to trim down from 3 down to 2 just for mana curve reasons, be a little bit leaner, I could believe it. But I think that's probably a card that he's going to want to keep in some numbers. I'd probably be more looking at some of the clunky permission spells, like upgrading my 3 steps ahead and my negates to No More Lies and change the equation.
Yeah. Change the equation, answering pretty much all of Percy's deck. And he'll be hoping to find some of that, as well as ways to just clear that battlefield. Friends, if you have enjoyed the coverage this weekend, help us give a big shout out and a thank you to our sponsors, Beckett and Dragon Shield. If you want to get your cards graded, you can send them to Beckett, get them in a fancy slab, give them a nice rating, and show it off. Be proud of it. Stick it on your mantle. Dragon Shield, protect your decks, and sleeve up your cards in some of the best in the business. So big thank you to our sponsors, and a big thank you to everyone at home for joining us. It's been an absolute blast this weekend. Standard is so good right now. Meticulous Archive will surveil a card to the top here for Chris Patello, and we are underway, game 2. Meow.
Looks familiar.
It comes in tap, but that's just because he just skipped the move to attack step.
That's the good kind of coming in
Yeah.
tapped.
Coming in, swinging. Love it. Turn 2. In with the Swift Spear once again, taking little chips out of Chris Patello's life total here. Second main phase, Manifold Mouse gets to resolve. All right, Chris. Are we going to play land go or... Hey, nice, okay. Found it this time around. Temporary lockdown takes the threats off the board.
One key difference between mono red and, say, Is It or Gruel is mono red will not be removing the temporary lockdown from the battlefield, so you can kind of consider those cards permanently exiled.
Yeah.
Unless, for some reason, Chris wants to bounce his own temporary lockdown.
Why would he do that? Self-sabotage. Screaming Nemesis hits the board here for Percy, so finding more threats, and it's going to be enough to cost that Day of Judgment. So get that off the board, says Chris Patello.
The board sweepers that Chris was
missing.
dying for in game 1, now he has 2.
Sir, slow down. Whew. You got another answer for this guy? You're going to need it, Chris.
Wow,
Wow,
I love this.
yes, I love to see it.
So it's basically Burst Lightning you
Yeah.
in the sense of trading in 1 card for 2 damage, but that emblem sticks around permanently, especially in a post-sideboard game that is brutal against Chris and really changes his prospects of being able to go long against the red deck.
Yeah, be aware of Screaming Nemesis and open mana, because post-combat, once they've done damage, they're going to try and smack this guy to get that emblem on you, or just kill you with Witchstalker Frenzy or the same, or similar. This time around, though, Chris has an answer and the ability to deal with the second copy. He's down to 10. He's not gaining any more life this turn.
Yeah, that Screaming Nemesis should just be destroyed, not exiled. Not that it really matters.
Yeah, no graveyard shenanigans from Percy. Oh boy, creature land as well. Heartfire Hero getting targeted. It's going to be so big next turn. Good lord, Percy's doing an excellent job of proving. Just, you can just hit your mouse. Just how good this deck is when it draws like this.
We can talk a bit about the card Get Lost, which Chris Patello has 4 copies. It's sort of the perfect card, exactly what Azoruis needs in those high-resource long games where it's like, okay, you know, I have 8 lands on the battlefield, I stock up, I find my efficient, unconditional answer to anything. But in a game like this, where Chris hasn't actually made a card advantage play, things are running on a little bit tighter margins, Percy's getting to use the maps for full value, it can be somewhat painful to have to answer a Screaming Nemesis and actually leave behind 2 pieces of cardboard for your opponent to make use of.
Well said. Beza hits the board. It's just a 4/5 that has no friends and a treasure attached to it. Oh, good grief.
So now that Heartfire here is just larger than Beza.
Oh boy, Lithomantic Barrage as well. Here we go, in for 5.
Take 5.
Oof.
Now, if that Heartfire hero dies ever in the game, Chris Patello dies as well. There's no life gain. Remember, there's an emblem.
Does he have it? He has it! Witchstalker Frenzy targeting the mouse. 1 attacker. It is 1 cheaper, so it's 3 mana. Smack your own mouse. 5 damage to Chris Patello, and that is it. The hand extended. Percy Fang making it look easy, and that is our champion. That was sick.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, I really